here before it's our turn to enter the reserve. If you haven't done so already, I'd recommend getting your cameras out and ready to go if you want any pictures. This is a photo safari, so we'll make a couple of brief stops along our way for pictures, but please just keep in mind I cannot always stop for the animals, and they definitely don't stop for us either, so you want to be ready at all times. If you have an action or sports setting on your camera, that'd be the best setting to get some better quality photos. It also gets pretty bumpy out here, so if you're holding on to any loose items, please make sure that you're holding on tightly. Alright, my friends, now we are going to head into the reserve, so get ready. Up here we're entering the Little Ituri Forest. It's home to a lot of animals that are expert camouflagers, blending in well with their surroundings as their main form of defense against predators in the wild. Now, that can make finding these forest animals a little harder, but if you look to your right, you'll see an okapi in the back corner on the hill. They are very reclusive animals, usually found by themselves or in pairs. Now, the okapi are often thought to be relative of the zebra because of the similar stripe markings on their hindquarters and legs, but their closest living relative is actually the giraffe. Researchers know this due to their similar skull structures. One of my favorite things about the okapi is they also have these long prehensile tongues reach about 18 inches long, which means they can lick their own eyeballs too. Up here to your left, you'll see the backside of the black rhinoceros. Just at the edge by the water. The black rhinos are known to be the smaller of the rhinos. They reach 3,000 pounds, but that still makes them one of the largest land animals. And they can move pretty fast even for their size, known to charge at of up to 35 miles per hour. Now, there's kind of this gradient color of its skin going on right now. Black rhinos have a dark gray colored skin, but it's a little kind of reddish brown right now because they also love to roll around in mud and dirt to help them protect their skin from the sun. It also helps them cool down and hydrate their skin and gain relief from insects. That's usually called mud or dirt bathing, and a lot of animal species will do that behavior too. And then to your right side, you'll see the bongos. They have these really white colored stripes that contrast greatly against their dark colored fur, and that helps them become some of the more expert camouflagers. And they get the nickname the ghost of the forest because it's usually really hard to find them. Up here to your left, you can also see a couple greater kudu in between the bushes across from us. They are some of the tallest antelope in Africa, stand 55 inches tall at the shoulders. And last but not least, the saddle-billed storks over there. They get their names from their yellow saddle-shaped shield on their bills, and they can stand about 5 feet tall. Those birds are also very solitary, often found either by themselves or in their nesting pairs. So male and female together when they're not by themselves. Now, our next area of the reserve is called the Safi River, and so we're going to head up here and see if we can find any of the Nile hippopotamus. Now, the hippos are nocturnal. They do most of their activity at nighttime. And they like to stay in the water most of the day to keep themselves cool. They can hold their breath for about 8 minutes at a time. And this will really help them get around a lot easier. If you look to your left, you'll see a hippo on the land. A really rare sighting. They mostly will come out of the water at nighttime. So it's a little unusual to see them on land during the day. Now, before we get too far, you can also see the large white birds. They're called pink-backed pelicans. I'll tell you about them in a moment, but let's look at this hippo. Now, hippos are some of the largest land animals. Even though they spend most of the day in the water, they're considered land animals, and they'll average about 5,000 pounds or more. Males are known to reach up to 5,500 pounds in weight. But hippos only eat about 80 pounds of vegetation per day, so if you compare that to their body weight, it's not really a whole lot of food they're consuming. They are herbivores though. They will consume grass and plants throughout the day and have these really long front teeth called incisors that can reach 18 inches long, and they will help them gnash through their aquatic plants that they eat a lot. But most of their eating is at nighttime, since they can do their grazing. Otherwise, they're usually in the water in groups called bloats. And then those pink-backed pelicans we saw, they form groups called pods that will contain up to 500 various pairs of pelicans. Their large number of groups can help them ward off predators. And sometimes their name gets a little confusing because the pink color they're named after only appears during their mating season. And it helps them attract their mates to one another. Now we made it to the next area of the reserve. It's called the Savannah, and it's the largest area of the reserve, also home to a lot of the more famous animals in Africa, like giraffes, elephants, zebras, and more. So let's see what we can find up this way. Now, if you look to the right in between the trees, there's a couple of the Hartman's mountain zebras. We're going to make our way around to the other side of that clearing and hopefully get a better view of them over there. There's 3 species of zebras in the world, and you can see all 3 of them across Walt Disney World property here in Orlando. At the reserve, you'll see the Hartman's mountain zebras. Over at the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail, there's the Grevy zebras. And then at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, there's the common zebras. Now, each unique species of zebra has some pretty identifiable features you can use to tell them apart. And a lot of this surrounds their stripe patterns. So the Hartman's mountain zebras here on the reserve, they have these thicker stripes on their hindquarters and fully white underbelly. So when you see those features, you know it's the Hartman's mountain zebra. They also have these really uniquely shaped hooves that will help them climb mountains, but they're also suitable to live in lower plain areas like the savannah. You can look to your left, you'll see the African wild dogs laying down just before the rock cave. They're sometimes called painted dogs because they almost look like they've been finger painted with their splotchy coats. No 2 dogs share their same coat pattern, which will help them locate each other from great distances. And this helps them in the morning because they don't begin their day until each individual dog greets one another. And then you'll want to look on your left still. Over here, there's the sable antelope. They have long horns that curve backward to help ward off predators, especially those that jump on their prey back to capture it like lions. And then the Maasai giraffe, a couple of them running too. Now that one just across from us, that's the youngest female on the reserve. Her name is Zella, and she's about a year old. Just past her, you can also see the youngest male. His name is Humphrey, and he's about 5 months old. And then there's also another young female over there by the tree line. Her name is Maple. She's also about a year old. Now, the giraffes will reach about 6 feet tall when they're born, and they triple in size to stand 18 feet tall as adults. They say that per foot of giraffe, there's about an inch of tongue inside their mouths, too, because they have those long 18-inch prehensile tongues like the okapi we saw earlier. To your right, those animals with the large horns are called Ankole cattle. And their horns can reach 6 feet long. Many people expect the horns to be heavy due to their size, but they're actually mostly light and hollow and have these honeycomb-like structures on the inside of the horns to allow blood to pass through and act like a cooling system. Also, some wildebeest on your right side. Alright, and then that zebra on your right side. Quite a few actually. And there's one young zebra just at the edge of the group closer to us. His name is Dash. He's about 6 months old. Now, a group of zebras is called a dazzle. And often they use their unique stripes to help them out. If they stand at just the right distance from each other, it will confuse predators because rather than being able to tell one zebra apart from the other, it just looks like kind of static on a TV, like to us. And they won't be able to tell the zebras apart or even really notice them. So it's a way they can kind of naturally keep the predators away from them. In a similar way, a lot of the animals out here are pretty creative to protect themselves, specifically those wildebeest. One way that they will stick together is because their newborns are capable of running just as little as 7 minutes after being born, and it helps the group stay together and use their agility to outrun predators. However, wildebeest only have an average lifespan of about 3 years in the wild because they are a great source of prey for a lot of predators, especially lions. And the wildebeest are very large in number, usually forming groups as large as 1.5 million wildebeest, and they will travel up to 1,000 miles together during their migration period. That's some of the greatest distances that species will travel. And because those wildebeest sleep in their large groups, a lot of times that's when they're most vulnerable. They will sleep in rows at night so that if predators approach them, they can run away without running into one another. Now, up here to your left, on top of the rocks, there's the mandrills. Once you get on the other side, you'll be able to see them over here too. They are some of Africa's largest and most colorful primates, known for these blue and red patchworks on their face that get more vibrant in color as they get excited. Now, mandrills also have these little cheek pockets on the sides of their mouths they use to store snacks for later. And they're very communal animals too. They will engage in a lot of friendly behavior with each other throughout the day, like grooming each other and baring their sharp 2-inch canine teeth to one another. Baring those teeth is thought to be aggressive, but it is very friendly for them. And then if you look to your right, you'll see 2 African elephants. They are the largest land animals, averaging 12,000 pounds and consuming up to 300 pounds of food per day. Now, the elephants, as the largest land animals, really have no known natural predators because most won't think to target an animal of such great size unless they're super desperate. And even then, the elephants are very large for most predators to take on. Instead, an elephant's greatest threat comes from humans, mostly through things like habitat destruction and poaching, as those are some of the top factors that lead to animal population loss in the wild. And the elephants are usually poached for their ivory tusks, but there was also a time that they were being poached by farmers. And that's because the elephants grew their homes closer and closer to the farmland. This was from a lot of habitat loss. And the elephants would start raiding the farmers' crops for food. This destroys the farmers' livelihood, and the only way they knew to protect their source of food and income was to poach the elephants. Now, speaking of elephants, there's some more up here to the left we'll be getting a view of as we continue our journey this way. Now, here at Disney's Animal Kingdom, our researchers started observing the elephants' behavior, and we noticed that they are afraid of the sound of bees buzzing. And this was something we helped educate the farmers in Africa on. So now, instead of poaching the elephants, they'll build these beehive fence posts around their farmland. This serves as a natural way to keep all the animals and the crops safe at the same time. And lucky for us, we'll also get to see a beehive fence post a little later on our journey, so you can get an idea of what they look like. They're pretty interesting. I'll tell you more about them then, but we'll have to see what else we can find too. Now, the elephants are pretty unique for a couple of reasons, very different than other animals. Not only for their size, but they also have those trunks that have the prehensile end that will help them grip on things. And this allows them to pick up their food and they often shake it out before putting it in their mouth to get rid of dirt or insects in their food. They also like to pick up clumps of dirt and then spray their bodies with the dirt to help protect their sensitive skin. Just like that black rhino we saw earlier that loves to mud bathe, the elephants do it too, but they mostly will give themselves a mud shower. Now, on the left, we're going around these greater flamingo. They are the largest flamingo species and the lightest pink. Their pink feathers come from consuming beta-carotene. That's a mineral found in brine shrimp, which is a large portion of their diet. And the group of flamingos is called a flamboyant. corner of this clearing, we're gonna go around it too. We can already start to see the white rhinoceros. They are my personal favorite animal on the reserve, and they are very unique for quite a few reasons. They're known to be the larger of the rhinos, average 5,000 pounds. They can gallop like horses and get all four of those large feet off the ground at one time. Now pause. More about the rhinos in a minute, but look at the ostrich to the right. The ostrich's largest species of bird. They are flightless though. They can actually run about 40 miles per hour though, so they are very fast. They also often run with their wings kind of fluffed out a bit to help them stabilize and change directions easier. And then those white rhinos on your left. Now, kind of similar with the black rhino. Their skin isn't really black, it's a dark gray. The white rhinos, their skin is not white, it's a light gray color. And their name actually originates from the Afrikaans word vite. Afrikaans is a language that is spoken in parts of South Africa and derived from the Dutch, and when translated, the word vite is really better meant to mean wide rhino after their large size and broad-shaped mouths. There's also a cheetah on top of the hill to the left. They are the fastest land animals, sprint 60 miles per hour, and reach their speed in just 3 seconds. Alright, my friends, keep your eyes to the left. You'll see the lions laying at the edge of these rocks. They're nocturnal, so they are mostly active at night, and they spend up to 20 hours of the day lounging around, engaging in little to no activity. They will conserve their strength for the nighttime, which is when the females go out to hunt, while the males stay behind to protect the cubs. Now, a group of lions is called a pride, and they will contain 1 to 2 males and anywhere between 2 to 40 lions total, so mostly females and cubs in the group. Approaching this little hillside. It has some large burrows tucked along the side, and they are home to the world's largest burrowing animal, the warthog. You can find one out and about, but this last burrow will pass. And notice their large razor-sharp tusks. They'll use those to dig out their burrows and defend themselves. But the warthogs are really intelligent and often work smarter, not harder. One example of this is instead of making brand new burrows for their homes, they find unattended ones that have been left behind from other animals, or sometimes even kick the animals out using them, and they wind them out for their own use. And then if you look to your right, you'll see a couple more ostriches as well as their large eggs. They weigh about 3 pounds apiece and take about 40 days to hatch. You can tell those are females because their feathers are gray, males have black feathers. And the females all nest their eggs together in the dominant female's nest. She'll decide where her eggs go first though, and she selects the center of the nest since it keeps her eggs safe. Here, if you remember that elephants and the bees project we talked about, the beehive fence post will be to your left. Now it's this large box that hangs between 2 poles. The way it works is the bees live inside the box part, so when the elephants go to raid the crops, they bump into the box, which disturbs the bees and they start buzzing loud, and then the elephants flee. You also see the Nigerian dwarf goats. They are the other domesticated animal on the reserve. The only other one is the Ankole cattle. These dwarf goats are adults at this size, so they require less food and space, and this means that farmers that raise them can easily take care of them. The goats also produce milk of high value that farmers will use to sell in local villages, which helps the villagers benefit from the goats too. This way everyone can rely more on them and less on the local wildlife that surrounds them. Now, conservation is a big focus here because it's one of our main goals to help everyone live in harmony together. And there's actually a lot of simple things that we can all do to get partnered in this work. A couple of ways you can get started include reducing, reusing, and recycling more. And more importantly, recycling your old electronics. All of this helps to cut down on habitat destruction, and that's one of those number one factors that leads to animal population loss. Now, the electronic recycling is really important because your electronics contain this mineral called coltan, which is heavily mined in Africa. And the mining destroys the homes of a lot of animals, but specifically elephants and primates. So, helping to recycle those electronics when you're done with them, you can protect those animals too. Now, we have made it back to the Warden's Post area, so we're going to head up in just a moment to get you on your next adventure. It's been my pleasure helping you navigate through the reserve, and it's always my goal that you learn something new and enjoy seeing those animals out there. But this is, after all, Disney's Animal Kingdom, so there's a lot of unique species throughout the park. I encourage you to stay alert. You never know what you might see around the corner. But there's also a couple more reclusive areas to travel to find those animals. Like the safari, you can always join us again. No two are the same. And there's also the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail that will be located up the hill and then to the right after you exit. There you can find animals like gorillas, naked mole rats, meerkats, and more. There's also another trail in Asia called the Maharaja Jungle Trek. And over there you can find animals like the Sumatran tigers, Komodo dragons, bats, and more. Alright, I'm gonna go over here and wait for the Warden's Post to open up. And if you haven't done so already, I'd recommend making sure everything is with you still. You never know what could have fallen out of your pockets, so just double check the floor by your feet or your seat when you go to leave. And we are going to head up to the Warden's Post, so it means it's about time for us to part ways. But here in Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye. That's way too sad and far too final. Instead, we like to say Kwaherini, which means to go well. So Kwaherini, everyone. I hope that you go well and have a great rest of your day, wherever your journey takes you out there. And thank you so much for joining me. Asante Sana.